Build. This is Chewy from PropMonkeysFPV, and I have in front of me is a SCX provided by the ATs. Lots of parts provided by ATs. If you saw my first part of this video, then I explained everything. So now what we are going to do is now we're just going to upgrade everything, all the software, firmware, configuration, and all the way up to configuring your transmitter so you can talk to so you can change your channels on the VTX via a VTX using the VTX that I use, or changing the channel via a transmitter. So first thing is we're going to update BL Heli. This is not a video about how to install all the software that you need. I'm going to assume you already have it. If you need links, look below. I'll have all the links of where to get everything that I'll be using here today. So I'm going to connect. Well, first let me disconnect. There you go. So I have connected USB. I have the battery powered up. Let's say read. Fantastic. I've read everything. As you can see, my 4-in-1 Littlebees came with 14.6. They are Littlebee 20 amp pros. But I like to use multi-shot, so I'm going to install my multi-shot version firmware. Here it is, FET Littlebee 20 amp pro multi-shot Rev 1485, which is the latest that I know of. So you say OK. This is going to warn me, are you sure? I can say yes, and there it goes. Say OK, and then we do the next one. So here it is. Yeah, that's the right one. Yes. Okay, then we do the next one. Yep, this is ESC number 3. Got the right one. Finally, the last one, last ESC. Just be careful if you have, like I do, have several versions of different ESC files. Make sure you're always picking the right one. So I'm not sure what will happen if you pick the wrong one. Probably not good things. Okay. You know, say no. Okay. So here we are. So we have them all here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just set a few things. I like to set my beacon strength to 120. That's just the how loud the beeps are. When will it start? I like to set at 2 minutes. So 2 minutes of idle, your motors will start beeping, or ECs will cause the motors to beep, which is great because if you crash and you can't find it, just wait a couple minutes and hopefully you can hear it. Everything else, stamp light's good. Everything else I'm going to just leave as is. I'm going to hit write, and what's going to do is going to write all 4. So it's going to do all four for me. All 4 ESCs, that is. And so now what I really want to do is let's go ahead and calibrate. Well, after each firmware update, or the first time you have ESCs, you really want to calibrate. So the thing to do that is you got to unplug the battery, and always have props off, guys. I can't stress that. Always have props off, because these things will spin up if you do something wrong, or you have something hooked up wrong, or doing the wrong step or something. You really don't want those props on if they go off accidentally. They can really hurt you. Alright, so I unplugged the battery, I hit this checkbox, and I just hit calibrate, and just hit all the defaults fine. Make sure it's powered off, so click OK. Now it wants me to power it on. I will do so. Alright. So we're just going to wait. And we just hear some more tones. And that's it. We are done with ESCs. Almost. So now that's it. That's all I want to do here. Let's go ahead and disconnect. I think that's it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go over beta flight. In beta flight, I'm going to connect over here. And by the way, you can't have beta flight and BL Highly connected at the same time. You'll get an error, so make sure only one's connected at any time. So what I want to do is, oh, that's what I want to do. Let's disconnect. We want to check the direction of the motor spinning. So let's go back to BL Highly. Let me say yes. So let's go ahead and spin up motor 1. And it is the wrong direction. It should be going this way, and it's not. So motor 1 is wrong. Let's try 2. 2 is correct. It's going this way. 3. 3 is correct. It's going this way. And 4. So 1 and 4 is incorrect. So what I'm going to do is go back over here and go ahead and connect to my ESCs. And then what I like to do is click on all the ESCs you want to disable or deselect, and only have 2. ESC 2 selected, because we know, oh, I'm sorry, it's 1 and 4. 1 and 4 is bad. So we go up here, motor direction reverse, and go ahead and right. And then next up, let's do 4. Reverse, right. Okay, now we're done. Now let's go back to motors. Let's test one more time. And it is correct now. So 1 is correct. Now I'll just double check everything. 2. Oops. 2 is correct. 3 is correct. 4 is correct. Alright. All motors are in the right, going in the right direction. So great. Now let's go over to beta flight. And what I want to do here, we're not quite done with the ESCs. What I want to do is now check the minimum throttle. So what I do is I'll turn this on, go ahead and click on master 1 so I can use the arrows, and I use the arrows to kind of arrow up, and I wait till the motors are nice and steady. See, 1040 is really nice and steady, but I usually like to go 10 more. So just to give a little buffer in case you have to throttle down, or when you do a hard turn and one of the motors has to go to min throttle, you don't want to be too low. You want to make sure there's a little bit of room for error. So I'm going to say 1050 for me. So, and that's over here in configuration, and right here in min throttle, 1050. And I selected multi-shot. You do have to select multi-shot ahead of time, I believe, before you start upgrading BL Highly. I could be wrong, but that's what I did. I went in here. I went to beta flight, made it to multi-shot before I did the BL Highly software upgrade or firmware upgrade. Now I am using BL Highly 301. And for that one, depending on your flight controller you use, I'm just going to assume you guys know how to upgrade your own firmware. But if not, you know, there's a bunch of YouTube videos again that you can reference. But I am using Betaflight 301. Okay, so next up is we want to try to figure out the receiver. So the way I have it hooked up, oops, I have to disconnect and reconnect because it rebooted. So the way I have it hooked up is I have my S bus is on UART1, so I turn that on, and I am using SmartPort 3 or UART3 for SmartPort, which is so I can get telemetry back to my radio, so I can get to the VBAT on my transmitter, so it can warn me when I'm too low. I don't use an OSD. Just simply because it's just a pain in the butt to put in a build, and it makes a build more complex, more points of failure, and all that stuff. And so I've learned not to use the OSD I used to, and having this really helps. So Alright, so then under configuration, I already said to put that multi-shot. I personally like see motors, no, that's all fine. So I have my flight controller 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees. The reason is, as you can see, my USB is I can connect to my flight controller on the side. If I did how this board came default, then it would have to be from the back, and with the SCX, there's no way to get to the USB from the back. So I just rotate it 90 degrees. Make sure you rotate it here, and the best way to check that is that you got it right is to go back to setup once you made the changes and make sure the orientation is going how you expect it, right? Make sure you check that, because if you have the wrong orientation and you have the board turned and you got that 90 degrees incorrect, that once you arm and try to take off, that quad is going to go berserk on you. It may hit you. I mean, it's just going to go butt whack. It's going to scare you. So just make sure you have that correct before you do anything. Since I don't use auto level, I'm going to turn off my accelerometer because I don't need it. And that's for those people who like to fly in auto level mode. I don't, or angle, or horizon, or whatever you guys call it. Turning it off will lower CPU usage, so that your processor has more room to do other things when it needs it. That's why I turn it off. Alright, so what else do we have here? VBAT, turn that on. And for those who saw my build, part 1 video, I forgot to connect the VBATs. So a wire from the positive LiPo to the VBAT pad for the flight controller. That's all you need. You don't need the negative. But once you have that in, you can turn this on. I set mine to 8K. That's why I wanted to use a F4 board, because it can handle these fast loop times. And I turned on telemetry. Okay, so that's all needed. Alright, so let me save one more time. Let's try this again. Did everything save? Yes, I think everything's saved. Now next is we want to check if the receiver is working. So you see everything's at 1500. So what I'm going to do over here is going to turn on my radio. You can't really see it. Let's see if I can get the camera up a little bit. So I'm just going to turn on my radio. Make sure I select the right profile. So I already created a profile. I've already bound, so I'm hoping you guys already know how to bind to your receiver. Alright, in any case, select. Let me go ahead. So, as you can see up here, now you see, oh, my battery's low on my transmitter. We'll get to that later. So you can see things are moving. So I know I have things right. Things are looking good. Okay, yaw, pitch, and roll. Okay, so let's continue on here. So now what I really want to do is the first thing you probably want to do is see how these are not at 1500. So you really want to center those, calibrate your sticks, and set your endpoints correctly. It's a pretty simple exercise. It's kind of hard to see, but what you're going to need to do is, I wonder if I turn off this light will help. Try that. That help? Probably, yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go page, oops, menu, page, and you want to go to here. So for here, what I'd like to do is, and channel 1 is my throttle. Throttle, you want to make sure everything should be at 1000 to 2000. So just go to that negative 100 and go until you hit 1000. Then I put my stick all the way up, and now I change the positive 100 and bring it down till I get to adjust to 2000. Great. And that's it. We're done there. For throttle, really don't care about making sure that mid center is exactly on. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to move on. It's channel 2, which is, I think is, yes, it is roll. So for roll, again, so you're just going to have to move the stick all the way over so you get the minimum, and then start adjusting. Until you get 1000. There, and then you go max. Go over to the next field. Go max out your roll, and until you get 2000. There. So now what we want to do now is center it. So here that 0.0. So you leave your roll back at the middle. You see it's at 1496. Just go ahead and adjust that. This is where we adjust. There it is. It'll fluctuate a little bit, but as long as it's pretty much 1500, it's good. So there we are. So next up is pitch, I believe. So pitch is next. So let me go over here. So negative. So I thought it was going. There it is. There it is. It's 1000. This one. There it is, 2000. Alright, and then let's go ahead and center it so it's a little low. There it is, centered. Next is yaw. That's over here. So exit. That's channel 4. Let's edit mode. Wrong way. There it is, 1000. Okay, then we go to, just gotta go next field. Let's bring that one down. There it is. Alright, now we're going to adjust it to make sure it's at 1500. There it is. And that's it. We're done. So we've adjusted, we made sure we calibrate our endpoints, and we centered everything. We're done there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to configure the eSheen ET526 video transmitter. So to the point where you can actually control the channel changes via the transmitter. I'm going to use the S1 little pod here knob to do it. What we have to do is we have to do some channel mapping. Now I'm using an X4R in here, and X4R PWMs that you can use is channel 1, 2, and 3. As you know, those are already being used by the throttle, aileron, and elevator. So what I did was I went ahead and decided to choose channel 1. So I took the PWM signal wire from the VTX and soldered it to the channel 1 of the receiver. And now what we need to do is we need to go to Betaflight, which I'll do right now. And we need to remap it here. So you go, you type in map. As you see, it's our normal mapping of throttle, aileron, elevator, rudder, auxiliary 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want to use auxiliary 3 as my knob and move it to channel 1, and that means obviously we need throttle, so we're going to move throttle to channel 3, or just basically do a swap. To do that, just type map, and we do 3 AER12T4. See how I did that? Hit save, and that's it. We're good. So right now, if I go to receiver and I try to use throttle, it's doing aux 3. That's not good, right? We need to have it in throttle. To do that, that's pretty simple. Now we got to go back to the controls. Move this out of the way. So for here, you go into your model, exit out of that, page, just page 2 input. And what I like to do, I just like to create I guess you don't have to do that, but yeah, I guess you don't have to do it. Let's just go straight to here. So here, what we want to move is move your throttle. We're on the mixer view, and just move it down to aux. Channel 7 is aux 3. So we have your TAER 1, 2, 3, 4. So 7 is 3, and that's where I want it. So because I had mapped throttle over to aux 3, and now we need to set channel 1 to be not that, but this. There you go. So now it's on S1. And if I did this correctly, so if we go back to beta flight, you see throttle is back up there, back where it should be. And then if I use the knob, it is now aux 3. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is demonstrate. Hopefully you can see this. That's my light bulb. Hopefully you can see some light changing. Maybe from the top part here. It's kind of bright, but let me see if I can do this. See that? See how there's the lights moving around just by me just moving the knob? That's what you want to see. So I'm actually changing the channel, right? So it's set to every equal interval there's a channel change. And what I did here was I actually took, you could probably see these little gold markings I had put around the knob. I did that so I can see where channel 1 is, channel 2, channel 3. So you play around with it, and you put a mark where it's exactly where it needs to be that makes that channel to change, and that's it. So there you go. I mean, there's a lot more you can configure. Obviously, there's the PIDs. So we got the basics on. We made sure we can connect to the receiver, and the transmitter's talking to it. We made sure that the basics, we have multi-shot. We calibrate our motors and set the minimum correctly. Obviously set S-bus correctly, VBAT, and you can tell if VBAT's working if you go under setup and you see here 11.3. So that's how you get that, and you can verify. And then going back to configuration, I set since I have an F4, I have 8K. I set it to 8K because F4 boards can handle it, and I turned on my telemetry so I can get telemetry back to my radio. And then of course, in part 1 I showed you how to wire it so you can get the telemetry being sent back by the receiver. Alright, PIDs, I'm going to leave them. That's another discussion. I wouldn't worry about it. So default works fine. It's obviously slow when you're trying to turn. You may want to change the rates, but PIDs will fly fine. Obviously you want to tune. Let me unplug this. You want to tune it. So if you want better performance for racing and all that, default PIDs probably not the best way to go. We've calibrated our transmitter to make sure that the endpoints are at 1000, 2000, and everything's kind of lining up at 1500. And then modes. Oh well, I'll do this later, but I like to set this. And again, I'm not going to go through a tutorial of this, but I definitely want to set my let's see, do I have it here? No, I don't have anything configured, but I will configure it. So do your modes. I like to arm with a switch, and so I'm going to do that, and a couple other things, so I'll do that later. And that is it. So hopefully this was useful. I apologize if I try to go quickly. I'm trying to make sure that you guys get what you need, and not get bored of a very long video. Alright, take care. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and post it on the comments. I will try to answer them. And alright, good luck. Thanks.